And the race is on in Nepal as the country reels from its worst earthquake in decades. Well-honed rescuers from the four corners of the earth mobilizing to find more survivors under the rubble, care for the injured, and provide for those sleeping outdoors. Government and aid agencies coming together, and so they should, says public opinion. In today's world, there's no excuse for staying home. Recent examples show that nations who fail to answer the call after a natural disaster do so at the risk of seeing their own images tarnished. Which brings us back to Nepal. It's poor, it's remote, but a Western backpacker's favorite that borders both India and China, a nation that in the past has been chronically plagued by political gridlock, set back years, say some, by this killer quake. How will it rebound? How can it rebound? Today in the France 24 debate, we're talking about the race to save lives in Nepal. And joining us, Nepal's ambassador to France, Ambika Devi-Luintel. Thank you for being with us. I want to thank as well a former Norwegian Minister for International Development. Erik Solheim chairs the OECD's Development Assistance Committee. Thank you for joining us. Mike Penrose, who heads the French humanitarian aid organization Action contre la faim. Was it Action Against Hunger?
Action Against Hunger. Action contre la faim.
Is the English language translation. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. The death toll reaching 4,000 this Monday. It's a race now, both to save lives and, as we've seen with our teams in Kathmandu, to bury the dead. Yes, what with morgues overflowing. France 24 correspondent Mandikini Galot reports from Kathmandu.
Nepal is a nation in mourning. At Kathmandu's main cremation ground, grieving relatives are laying their loved ones to rest.
I lost two daughters. They were inside our home and couldn't escape. We will have to remain extremely careful now about the other tremors.
Saturday's deadly earthquake is already being called the worst tragedy this nation has witnessed in 8 decades. Thousands are still missing and many more are feared dead. If there's a small ray of hope, it's in the tireless work being done by these rescue workers. Even 48 hours later, they're still looking for signs of life under the debris. When they find a survivor, it's a small victory, but also a race against time.
Until last night, I could still hear people who were trapped under this building, but it's been eerily silent this morning.
Tonight is crucial because these rescue workers know that tomorrow it may be too late.
All right, Ambassador Devi-Luintel, when you first heard the news of this earthquake, we know seismologists said it was long overdue, but when you first heard the news, what was your reaction at that point?
It was quite shocking for me, because I just got a call. Did you hear that something happened, earthquake happened, 7.9 Richter, that has devastated? The first thing is to call, of course, how the families are and to contact my offices, try to contact my government offices, how we should go about, and to coordinate with my officials here, how we could help, extend the help from here to the victims over there. So this is how we are thinking on that line, and then we are trying to mobilize the Nepalese people here also to really find a solution how we could help them the best.
And Nepalese citizens in Paris, of course, in some cases, frantic to hear from their loved ones.
Yeah, of course. They are all very much worried about what is happening there. Of course, everybody has got their loved ones over there. But in France, some of them have lost their relatives, but not a very close relatives, but the distant relatives, and which is a very sad news for them. But however, everybody has come together here to express their solidarity to the people here, people in Nepal, and now they have come along with us to really find and to coordinate with us to find, how we could help the people, victims, and also the other people in Nepal.
And how is your family holding up?
My family's, I managed to contact my mother after 3 days this morning because they were sheltering in a car outside the house. So
And sleeping in a car?
Yes, they were sleeping in a car. That's what I came to know yesterday evening. And this morning only they came in the house to have a breakfast. So it was really, really a very, very difficult. They don't know how the house is. In fact, they are not in our own house. They are in my sister's house somewhere a little far from our own house. So it is a very, very difficult situation for everybody, not only because I don't just talk about my own family, because we are thinking about everybody's family. So it is really, really very, very difficult, very tragic moment for all of us.
Eric Solheim, where are your teams right now? What are you doing right now?
We had teams already in Kathmandu, and we've been trying desperately to push out along the valley towards the epicenter. So as well as assessing the needs in the city, and there's a considerable amount of need already in Kathmandu itself, we've been trying to progress along the valley to see what level of destruction has occurred close to the epicenter and what the critical needs are at the moment.
All right, Mike Penrose, excuse me.
No problem.
Here. We saw with Haiti that it took a long time for the international community to get the wheels in motion.
Yeah.
How are things this time around?
It's been relatively swift, but there are a number of stages to this. The first stage is, of course, the search and rescue effort. And the most important thing is not to get in the way of the people who are pulling people out of buildings in the first few days. But it's at the same time mobilizing behind the sort of critical life-saving need that's there and has existed for a long time already in Nepal. So Nepal's one of the countries with the highest level of child malnutrition. So we know already that there will be a number of already vulnerable children who'll need nutritional assistance, who'll need water and sanitation, and who'll need shelter, just a bed for the night. And the critical thing for us is mobilizing behind the search and rescue operations in order to ensure that that pipeline is opened and people get the supplies they need as quickly as possible.
All right, a reaction on Facebook, and we've had a lot of them. One from Ustad saying, now Nepal needs international support and solidarity, as well as prayers at its worst time. Pray together, help in any way possible. Eric Solheim, it's interesting because you hear there the ambassador tell us that in a way you've been effectively deputized to coordinate who in France can help, and Mike bring up the point that it's tricky as well because you don't want to step on each other's toes when you're trying to bring the help in. How does it work? How do you coordinate something like this?
I think we have to distinguish between the short, immediate period now and the more long-term. And in the short, I mean, the next week or so, it's still possible to save lives. I mean, based on experience from Haiti, from China, from other earthquakes, people may still be alive in the rubble for a week, maybe in extreme cases up to 10 days. To the extent possible, they must be saved. And then you need equipment to bring them out. You need doctors to treat them, maybe to do amputations and other life-saving remedies when they're brought out. You need helicopters to bring them to hospitals. You need the immediate rescue operation for these people. And for sure, the government of Nepal must lead this. Foreigners can contribute, but they can only contribute on the basis of estimates given by the government of Nepal.
All right, and we were saying that the first rescuers, of course, they won't come from France or from China or from anywhere else, but the Nepalese themselves. Let's cross to Kathmandu now and join journalist Ujjwal Acharya. Thank you for joining us in the France 24 debate. Night's fallen for the third time since the earthquake. And before I ask you about the rescue efforts, tell me, where are you and your loved ones going to be sleeping?
Thank you. This is the third night after the earthquake. If you could see a light behind me on the dark side of the screen, that's the camp where just outside my home where we'll be sleeping tonight. It's a third night we are sleeping out there, and if you could see the light, there are around 7 tented camps right there. All my neighbors, because this is a bit of open space in my area. All my neighbors, more than 100 of my neighbors are camped around that light. That's where we'll be sleeping tonight.
And last night you had a huge downpour.
Yeah, we actually had a downpour and it was not easy for us to sleep outside. Some of us decided to move in. A lot of us, those who have private vehicles, are sleeping inside the vehicles. The whole family, I have seen quite a lot of a whole family sleeping inside a car because that seems to be a most a viable option when it's raining. And some of us tried to put on the plastic seats above the tents just to save ourselves from the rain.
Ujjwal, you've shown some pretty pictures that were hard to describe, but you have to see them on your Twitter account. Let me ask you, when it comes to getting people from out under the rubble, what have you seen this Monday?
I was out since Saturday. I was out looking in the places where there are major impacts, and it's quite heartening to see that the houses are turned into rubbles, and people telling me stories about the rescue. Just today, I was in the city of Bhaktapur, which is very near to my home, and there was a woman pointing towards the rubble inside the city, saying that a 40-year-old woman was buried under it, and no rescue operation had been there. The local rescued a girl from the same rubble, but they were unable to rescue the 40-year-old woman, and they were asking the police and the other state agencies to carry out the rescue operation, but to no avail. The rescue has been slow. The first reaction of the first reaction was swift. The local went ahead with whatsoever they can do on the first day. If you look into the pictures of the first day of the rescue, most of these pictures you could see the locals trying to rescue people from under the rubble. In fact, we had a lot of stories saying that the locals have rescued people from under the rubble. For then after things. Once the police and other state agencies tried to rescue the local, were kind of like they were left behind, and also it's not easy for them to carry on the rescue when they are in the situation like we are living. It's really difficult for us to go out there, and because we don't know the danger, we don't know the rescue techniques, we don't know what we are gonna to do. We're just like raw, but rescue hasn't been at many places hasn't been what needed to be.
All right, Ujjwal, at this particular point in time, are you still feeling aftershocks?
The latest aftershock was just an hour ago. Before that, for hours, there wasn't a major quake. But and many people were in the camps, in the tented camps, were talking that this will be the last night that we will be staying out, and tomorrow we'll probably be moving in, because we have been told that 72 hours after the first strike is critical, and people were actually saying that next tomorrow morning they could actually move into houses. And tomorrow night they could sleep. But just an hour ago, we have an aftershock which was just 4.2, but it was big enough to give us the terror, the fear that we should probably be thinking to stay outside for a few more days before we could actually move into buildings.
All right, interesting points there brought up. I want to pick up on one of them with you, Eric Solheim, which is the locals want to go in there, but it's difficult because getting people out from under the rubble, that's a dangerous endeavor.
It's very dangerous because it shows the level of solidarity in the people of Nepal. They want to help for sure the families, but they also want to help neighbors and others. But the more that can be organized by people who know what to do, by people from Red Cross or from state rescue operations, the more they can be led in the right way, the more likely they are to succeed. And of course, Nepal is a poor country, and the state is not functioning as it would have done in France. But people are doing the utmost to help each other.
Reaction on Twitter. Nature's fury is ripping up a peaceful little country high up in the Himalayas. Nepal still needs help. That's from Anya on Twitter. A lot of shows of solidarity from around the world. There's also been some criticism saying that too much of that attention is on tourists, mountain climbers, going up Mount Everest, rich people who have gone on a hike, rather than on the poor people that are down below in the valley. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't know much about on that thing, because we are concentrating on the rescue and relief areas, because at the moment the first most important is the rescue and then relief materials to be reached to the needy people, and the government is very much committed to go for that, because I don't know about that part, so I'm so sorry about this conversation, but government is very much committed on this part, the relief and rescue work. So rescue is much, going on from different parts of the world. The rescue camps, rescue people are coming.
And what do you think of the media coverage here?
Media coverage here is wonderful, and I must appreciate that. The France, in all the channels I have been watching, so it has been covering very, very well coverage, and I really appreciate the way the media has taken this up in a very priority basis. And thank you so much.
Mike Penrose, your thoughts on the way this story's been told?
I think there has always starting to see a good focus on the real need as people get outside Kathmandu. But I do agree early on, and we do tend to see this quite regularly after the tsunami, etc., that the focus tends to be on tourists and on infrastructure, as opposed to the impact on the people that live there and have been living there for a long time. So we saw the first images after the tsunami were on the resorts on the Thai beaches, and I think some of the first images we've seen coming out of here have been rescue operations off the bottom of Mount Everest. But it's still tragic. All human loss of life is tragic. But I think it's really important that the media now focus on the bigger picture, and also the longevity, how long this problem is going to go on for, and the real needs that will endure.
And when you heard Ujwal say a 4.2 tremor has people thinking maybe instead of 3 nights outside, they should be staying outdoors for longer.
The 72-hour rumour, as was going around, is something that it made me a little scared when I heard him say that, because it's been proven that aftershocks can go on for weeks afterwards. The best example is after the earthquake that created the tsunami in Indonesia, which was a 9.2, I think. We had an aftershock that was over 8, over 1.5 months later, that devastated the island of Nias. So it's very, very dangerous to make the predictions around it. It will take this long, or this is how many there will be, or up to what magnitude, because evidence has shown us we really just don't know, and they could go on for a long time afterwards.
All right, and the idea of the short term and the long term, as was brought up, we're going to be talking about the long term a little more when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 today.